This is the Veteran Woman Podcast, the only podcast dedicated to empowering, inspiring, and encouraging veteran women to overcome their struggles and celebrate their successes. Now, here's your host, the one and only Airial Renal.
Hello, how are you?
I am prepared to ignite.
Yes, I am so excited. Thank you so much for saying yes. So I am too excited, but I know you have only like 15 minutes, so let's get started.
Cool, let's rock it.
All right, so I know you were in the military. So how did you decide to join the military?
You know, I come from a family of those who have served. My grandfather on my father's side was in the Army. On my mother's side was in the Navy. My father was a JAG officer. So I've always kind of been drawn to the military and into service. And also the school that I wanted to go to was not cheap. So I said, you know what? A military scholarship through ROTC could really be a good opportunity for me. Sure enough, it was, and I went to college on an Army ROTC scholarship, so I was a cadet for those 4 years, and then I was commissioned as an officer in the U.S. Army in May of 2002.
Oh, wow. And what did you get out?
So when you do a ROTC scholarship, you are committed to 4 years active and then 4 years in the reserves. So I was totally in for 8 years, 4 active, 4 in the reserves.
And so looking back, did you enjoy your military career?
I did. You know, there was a lot of ups. There were definitely some downs. I mean, a 13-month tour of duty in Iraq was no fun from beginning to end. But at the same time, you know, I look back at those days and those months and that deployment and even my military experience in general, and I say, wow, that really helps me put things in perspective. Because now when things are bad or the power goes out for, you know, a little while in Puerto Rico or I'm stuck in traffic, I'm like, you know, this isn't good. This isn't fun. But let's put things in perspective. You're not getting shot at. Mortar rounds aren't dropping around you while you're trying to sleep. Like, life could be worse. JLD, keep things in perspective, brother.
Right. The military teaches us a lot. And we don't realize how much it teaches us until we get out or a little later on in life.
It's true.
Now, when you transitioned out, how was your transition?
It was a tough transition, you know, going from basically an officer in a time of war. So I was an armor platoon leader in charge of 4 tanks and 16 men. So like real deal stuff. You know, I was used to things being on the line, everything being really important and potentially life and death situations. So like, you know, kind of like that, okay, like, you know, let's go back to the airy-fairy world of the civilians. And it was kind of a tough transition for me. I had to take some time and, you know, I went to Guatemala for 4 months. I backpacked through India and Nepal just to kind of try to give myself some time to, I don't know, maybe ease back into the world of civilians. And then, you know, then I was like, okay, what's next? Like, what's that next challenge? And, you know, honestly, when you've had the highest challenge of them all, which is lead men in a time of war, everything else kind of pales in comparison. So it was a tough transition.
And how did you get over that toughness? Because on the Veteran Woman podcast and me in general, I had a tough transition as well. And I tell people I believed I was ready because I had, you know, a good job. I was IT in the military. I had my resume. I had a degree, all of that. But nobody prepared me for that emotional part of the transition, like that culture shock. So how did you get over that, or did you ever get over it?
Yeah, one thing that was really interesting in the Army, which I really experienced firsthand, and I didn't understand it at the time because I really had no prior experience. You know, I went from a family, so I was living with my family for the first 18 years of my life, to college, which I went to a very small college, so immediately I felt like I was in another family. And then I went into the Army where, again, it didn't really surprise me at the time because that's all I had known, but I was in this, you know, my third family. Like, everybody looked out for each other. Everybody took care of each other. You're in a family, you know, that's how it is. And so for the first time when I got out of the military and I, you know, got my first corporate job, I was like, wow, like, people just kind of show up, do their thing, and then they leave. And they don't really seem to care too much if you win or if you lose or if you come or if you go. Like, there just wasn't this sense of family. It was the first time I'd ever really experienced that. it was tough for me to kind of make that adjustment to like, oh, like, you really don't care. Like, I sit next to you, like you're at a cubicle across from me, but, you know, that's about as far as it goes. And so that was kind of a big surprise for me, and it was a difficult adjustment for sure. And I realized, wow, I wish I knew how special this kind of family bond that we get in the Army is when I was in the Army. Now I can just see it looking back, but man, that's a special bond.
Right, right. So how did you get into entrepreneurship? Because JLD, John Lee Dumas, and podcasting are synonymous. I mean, you look up podcasting, you see JLD, and that's how I found out about you. And then I found out you were a veteran. So you were on my bucket list, vision board, whatever you want to call it, to talk to you. And so how did you get into that? And not just podcasting, but entrepreneurship and turning what I like to say, going from the military to million.
Yes. Well, first off, Airial, you know, I'm just excited, you know, that I get to talk to you, somebody that's been through a similar transition and the struggles and the obstacles and the challenges that goes through that. Because frankly, for me, like, I found myself becoming an entrepreneur because I had a string of failures leading up to that. Like, I failed at law school. I failed in corporate America. I failed in real estate. Like, I just kept trying these different things that I thought might be something that would actually, you know, ignite me, so to speak. And none of it did. And I wasn't finding success or happiness or anything that I wanted. And that kind of led me to start to self-educate myself through books and reading autobiographies. And that's kind of where, you know, I came across just the opportunities that entrepreneurship had, just kind of being, you know, your own man or your own woman and striking off on your own and, you know, taking your own life under your wings and not relying on somebody else, but doing it on your own. And I said, you know what, that's appealing, because I feel like the Army and the military in general has really set me up to be self-sufficient, to have confidence, you know, to fail. Because if there's one thing that, especially for officers in the Army, man, they set you up for failure, because you get thrown into a platoon, you don't know your butt from your elbows, to be politically correct here, and they are like, you are going to look like a fool, and that's what happens. But you learn through the failure and you learn on the job. And I said, you know what? That's what I'm going to do with podcasting, because I'm learning so much from other podcasts. I know that there's a void out there, which is nobody's creating a daily show interviewing other inspiring entrepreneurs. I can fill that void. I want to fill that void. So I stepped into it. I created the show. I knew that I was not going to be good, Airial. I knew I was not going to be good. I had no experience. Of course I wasn't going to be good. Nobody's ever good when they first start doing something, but I was willing to be bad in order to eventually get good. And that's what I wanted to do. So I did it daily, 7 days a week. I learned from my guests. I learned from my failures. I learned from my mistakes. I learned from my listeners who would email me feedback and guidance and criticism and support and compliments and all of the above. And I just learned. And I just kept doing that thing until I finally got to the place where I started to understand what my audience really needed, being what are the solutions to their biggest problems and struggles. And that's when I started to figure things out on the financial side, slowly but surely, to now where we're talking today. You know, I launched a podcast 5 years ago, and my brand, EO Fire, Entrepreneur on Fire, is a multi-million-dollar a year business.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And that is so inspiring as well for other veterans who are transitioning out. And you mentioned failures. Can you elaborate on those failures a little more? Because I really want to let people know, even though you go through failures, everybody's going to have them. We're all going to have those downs, especially when we're entrepreneurs. That's just like given. But through those failures, it makes us stronger. And when you're going through it, it's hard. It hurts like heck, but not to give up. I'm not sure if you know, but I am so big on suicide awareness and suicide prevention. And I know as veterans, sometimes we get in that rut where it's like, we can't see any hope. Nothing's going right. We can't see any hope. So how did you dig yourself out of those failures?
Well, first off, I'm really glad that you're taking that torch up. It is a worthy torch, Airial. So keep on pounding that drum, because it is so important. And people do need to know that this is a phase that so many people go through. I know I went through a very depressed stage post-military. And I was just kind of scratching my head wondering what was going on myself. I mean, I remember so clearly, I was born and raised in New England. I was a New England Patriots fan my whole life. I loved football, even back when they were horrible. And then they became great with Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, and they were winning Super Bowls, and that even got more exciting. But I remember watching them. This is like 1 year after my transition out of the military. And I was like, I don't even care if they win or lose. Like, I really don't care. And that was like a huge red flag for me, because I was like, oh my God, I used to live and die with the Patriots. I used to just, every play was either, the best or the worst. And I would get so excited, and I would look forward to the games. And now I don't even care. Like, I literally was like numb with feeling about whether the game went well or poorly. And I was like, man, something's wrong. And that's when I realized that, I was dealing with PTSD, and I was dealing with depression. I was having these issues. And, I can't honestly say that I thought seriously about suicide, but at the same time, I can't say that it was super far from my thoughts, because, it was something that I was just like, man, why am I feeling this way? And it was really a tough time in my life. So it's definitely something that's real, and that people go through it. And, this is coming from me. Like, I've always been an optimistic person. I've always had a lot of energy. People have always looked at me as happy-go-lucky. So for people that don't have that already going for them, because they just maybe are a little more even-keeled than I am, like, that can really take you down quick. So, I mean, it's a very important thing to talk about. So listen, there are so many failures. Like, I failed at so many things. And I think the most important thing that the listeners should realize is your failures are actually an indicator that you're doing something right. And what I mean by that is all of the magic that you're going to create in this world is going to happen outside of your comfort zone. Your comfort zone is that safe little spot where you never make mistakes, and you're good at something, so you stay there and you do that. It's just like, you become an expert at Super Mario Brothers, and you just win, and that's all you do is win. Well, you just keep playing that same game, like, you're never going to get better at like anything else. You're just going to be great at that one thing. That's your comfort zone. You got to get out. You got to try new games. You got to try new things. You got to fail. You got to stretch the envelope. You got to push yourself. You got to fail. That's where the magic happens, outside of your comfort zone. So for me, when I go too many days or weeks without failing at something, that's like a red flag for me, saying, wow, I need to get my act together and start really stretching myself again, because I'm not going to become better as a person, or I'm not going to experience new things unless I push myself out of that comfort zone. So that's absolutely critical, is to embrace failure. Don't shy away from it.
Wow, that's amazing. And that is a completely different take, but I love it. Embrace the failure.
Embrace it.
Mm-hmm. So I know our time is up. I hate to let you go, because I could talk to you for hours and hours, especially you being a brothers in arms.
Sister.
So what is one last thing you would like to leave with our listeners?
I think I'm going to keep it short and sweet for them, because it's powerful. If you want to be, do. Really make it that simple. I mean, Airial, you wanted to be a podcaster, so guess what? You started podcasting. Like, you got me on a call. Now we're recording this call. We're going to share with other people. If you want to be a writer, write. If you want to be, a golfer, go out and swing a golf club. Like, you have to do the things that you want to do. That's where you're going to win. So whatever it is you want to be in this world, just start doing that thing and failing at doing that thing and learning and pivoting and adjusting and getting just a little bit better. I mean, Airial, I was only a little bit better 100 episodes in. Then I was a little bit better 200 episodes in, and then a little bit better 300 episodes in as an interviewer, as a podcast host. And I just keep getting a little bit better every single time I get on the mic. And that's all anybody can ask for. So just do that thing that you want to be over and over and over again. And the exciting thing is, if it's really what you want to become in the world, you're going to want to keep doing that thing. It's the right thing, because you love it. You're excited by it. So keep doing that thing.
Beautiful. Thank you so, so much, John Lee Dumas, JLD, podcaster, king and God. Thank you so much. Thank you for your service. Thank you for saying yes. I'm just so excited. I have to contain my excitement.
Honestly, it was great chatting with you. Thank you for the kind words, and thank you for your service and what you're doing in this world. I mean, you're going to inspire people that I would never inspire. You are going to touch people and save people that need it. So keep being you, girl, because you are on fire.
Thank you so much.
You're the best, girl. Take care.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Veteran Woman Podcast. If you want to connect with Airial and let her know what you thought of today's show, be sure to head over to www.theveteranwoman.com and follow her on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter @The Veteran Woman.